Hey everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Interesting day on Friday on the US stock market. Mostly green, which has, I think, helped support Bitcoin. And it looks like we're forming a bull flag at the moment. And it's a pretty standard one too, which it's not often with Bitcoin you can actually just draw a trend line and then copy it up at exactly the same slope, and it pretty well fits the top side as well. That's a good sign. Do we break that to the upside now? I don't think so. Volume's been pretty light. It could actually happen today through the Asia session or sometime tonight during the US session. For the most part, vector candles have all been sort of recovered, except for these ones here. So a little bit of a pullback into that area would be handy. I'd like to see these are trend line regression deviations that you're seeing here with the parallel bands. If we get the 50 EMA above that, and then we see a vector above that as well, that's actually normally quite a bullish trajectory after that. So for the time being, though, it's a little bit more bearish than bullish, just as it stands right at this 15-minute level. But stochastic momentum kind of angling to the upside still on the 15-minute. So I just thought I'd start with that because bull flags when Bitcoin is on a run is something you need to pay attention to because they can quite often break to the upside. In saying that, a break below, a break to the downside on this could actually lead to a decent pullback. I kind of expected it to come back down into the 95.3 area as a pullback before going higher, but this here is actually looking quite strong for Bitcoin. Okay, so that's a channel to watch pretty closely. Break below and it'll probably come back. At least I'm actually looking more into the 94s, to be honest. But low 94s. There is some levels that may mean that doesn't happen. So if we go over to the daily, it's held that point of control really well. So that's a very positive thing as far as I'm concerned, especially on the weekend with lower liquidity and stuff like that. If the bears had really wanted to pull this market back, they could have. They could have pulled it back a bit more. The fact we haven't sort of retested the 20 moving average here is it's not great. It would suggest that maybe we get a bit more sideways for a couple of days. Just to let this catch up a bit, but you know, at this stage, being above the point of control, I'm not particularly concerned, and that point of control is sitting at around 97.5. So again, that low 97s is a pretty interesting level. One to watch out for. Stochastic momentum still positive to the upside. BBWP has ticked above the signal line, which is good. It's not really accelerating, but over the weekend you don't really expect it to either. What we don't want to see is a little fake out in this area like this. You're not going to see that coming on the daily. As you can see here, it dropped and had a massive, massive drop compared to the the increases and decreases we're looking at in candles at the moment. That was a huge daily drop. That was open to close 3.8%. So you're probably talking nearly 6% overall. The biggest one we've had lately is 2.5. So, what does 6% look like from here? Yeah, you're looking at basically a breakdown of this Bitcoin at the moment. At least get us back down into the value area low, which if that happens, I suspect it'll keep coming. Okay. But we are relatively high. We're a long way from the signal line. It would actually take a fair bit of downside to break this upward momentum at the moment. As you can see here, it was literally only 2 days of pullback, and then it came straight back up to the same level and continued on. So certainly more bullish than bearish looking at the moment, especially with Stonks increasing on Friday the way they did. Just going to go over to the pivots. It's holding this monthly pivot really well. It was a strong break through that pivot as well. So that's a really good sign. Interestingly, this secondary pivot here is 95.5. So again, sort of that 95.3, 95.5 level will be critical if we do drop out of this channel. But a move to the upside, a decent move to the upside, which is possible. The cyclic RSI is pretty well reset. As is this. So yeah, look, I mean, don't worry about these. As I mentioned the other day, that hasn't been calibrated for this, but it's just interesting. The cyclic RSI is kind of reset a little bit. I wouldn't say it's a full reset, but it's certainly at a level where you could see decent upside. The only thing is that ATO indicator is to the downside. Now, this is on the hourly. Just going to see if I can pick. No, probably. I don't think he's level. It's actually going to be a better. Just wait till this calculates. Yeah, so it's still relatively high. On the shorter time frames, it's pretty well reset as well. So, it's a bit of a coin flip where we're at the moment. Interesting to see what happens there. 4 hour is looking pretty bullish as well. It's starting to get a little heated though. So, what I'd like to see on the 4 hour is at some stage we actually break this flag, move up, and then pull back on the 4 hour and just pull back into this level here. If we sort of retest somewhere around the 99 level and it looks strong there, then the 105, sort of 104 levels come into play and are looking pretty good. Okay, that's where I'm going to be starting to get a little nervous about the move, though. Okay, so I think that would be a pretty good bullish playout. At this stage, nothing's really confirmed until we break above that point of the pivot, which is basically at the same level as this resistance level, and that's a good, also a good breakout, because at 100k we actually have decent liquidity as well. So there is a fair chunk of liquidity in at this 100k. Now, looking at this as well, there is a lot more shorts coming in. So these shorts are, I think, in quite a bit of danger at the moment. Just go through the time frames. The last 48 hours, last couple of hours, there's been quite a bit in both directions. Very low numbers, though, not huge numbers at all in either direction. So as we start to zoom out, same thing, not massive numbers. 74 million. Yeah, well, yeah, there's quite a bit to the downside. I think on the way down, that 94k would be a pretty critical level. Yeah, if you come down right to here, the 95,250, a sweep of that level would take out a fair bit. It just looks like, though, I think we'll take this first. Longs are looking shaky based on this, but I don't know. It's just looking too strong at the moment to the upside. I need to see some more action from the bears coming into the chart. A little bit of a downward slope on the CBD on both spot and futures, so that's not ideal, but just have to sort of wait and see. It's still, like, it's not dropping a huge amount, and it's dropping in line with sort of price going sideways and down, so oh, sorry, be keeping an eye on that anyway. Open interest, that's a good little tick up in open interest as it's sort of coming sideways. That's a reasonably bullish sign. Not a lot of red on the bid and ask delta either, so that's actually quite a bullish sign as well. Again, hard to read it over the weekend, but in general, that's what I'm looking at. Have a quick look at Sol. Yeah, Sol's looking pretty good as well. A lot of interest coming through on this pullback, so I do actually still like the look of Sol. Sol had the most definite uptick in spot CBD as well. Futures still aren't coming with it. It's interesting. Looks like the futures market isn't super impressed with this run yet. A lot of shorters still coming into the books, so just keep an eye on that, because that could actually be a good thing for those going long. Because it could mean a short squeeze, basically. So on the 7-day, there is, as we saw, there's a lot of longs in the charts. So I do expect a little bit of a pullback to tidy up some of them at some stage. But there is still, on the 30-day, there's still a lot of shorts that they can come into. So yeah, I'm liking that sort of 101 level just as a as a short squeeze sort of level. There is a lot that it will take by the time it gets to 101 though. So, you know, if we get up to that, like looking at this 104, 105 level doesn't look quite as likely here. Just there's not a lot up there. It's going to be whether or not people start putting a lot of shorts in as it's rising. So it may continue up into that area if that's the case, but at this stage, it's looking more like a 101. Be more confident about that level for a pullback anyway. As we can see here, on the open orders, there is a fair chunk above us, which would take us up into that 100K level if it swept all these. There's a big order up here in the 104 area, and it's been here since this drop. So that gives a little bit of credence. Same with this at 105. Could get there. It's just not looking like that at the moment. Now, there hasn't been as many longs come in either. A lot of these guys are holding their long positions at that 89K level. So that's a little concerning. Like, you look at this in general and it does kind of look like, okay, it could just be, at the moment, this could just be a lower high, and then we come back into this level. Now, I think there's enough people thinking that they could get faked out, and that's where the short squeeze could come in. People are still talking about the head and shoulders. Certainly not confirmed at the moment. And head and shoulders that are in the direction of trend, which, you know, the daily trend is still to the upside. They tend not to play out as much as head and shoulders that are in the direction of trend. So, and it could actually be like, if you start to look at this, there is potential for a head and shoulders to form here as well. So a break of that level could actually be, like, if that plays out, if we do get a head and shoulders playing out there, then could be looking at pretty well that 106 level as a target. So that's something to keep in mind. There's a few things at play at the moment. We just need some confirmation to the upside, follow through to the upside. All right, look at some volume lead. Or let's go to sentiment trader. So smart money looks like it might roll over a little bit. It's sort of hard to tell. It's a bit of a lagging indicator, this, but we have had a little uptick in retail dumb money coming back into the charts. Dumb money is lower than where it's been for a long time as well. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what smart money does to that. Generally, if dumb money's starting to buy back in and smart money is starting to sell, then we're going to get more of a pullback. But we'll have to wait and see. So 2x long Coinbase, haven't seen any big sells this last week. So that's a good sign. A bit of buying around the lows. It's a good sign. For the time being, that's an indication that probably going a bit higher. Coinbase itself, though, 85th largest trade at the high here on Friday. That's not a great sign, but yeah, I've seen worse too. So that's potentially suggesting there's maybe not as much left in this as we think. There haven't been any big trades at the top here on IBIT. And that was a pretty decent trade that has led to follow through. Whether these are people getting out or not, I have to wait and see. At this stage, the fact we've continued up after that probably suggests no. XME didn't have anything major on it. A little bit of profit taking here potentially. But yeah, it looks like financial sector is getting bought up at the moment. This was pretty beaten down. XLY is pretty flat on the week, flat to down anyway. XLP looks like it's getting some interest around here. Everything's kind of still just sideways. Energy sector got a bit of a sell by the look of it at the high here. This has been beaten down quite a lot, so I do expect that just to be a bit of profit taking. Don't think that's anything to worry about huge way. Technology sector, it looks like it wants to go on a bit of a run though. Plenty of interest down around these levels. I think if we make another break out of this level here, then it probably will go on a bit of a run. All right, so let's have a quick look. Have a look at the NAS. Fairly bullish close on the NAS. Would have been great to clear that 20 EMA, but still we did clear at least the red candles from the last Wednesday. Sorry, the last 2 days of trade before it. Tick up in stochastic momentum. It's not by any means out of the woods yet, but good bounce off this trend line too. So looking quite bullish on that. Yeah, not much else to really say there. Just looking relatively bullish. Equal weight could be a good double bottom on the equal weight here too. If we clear these levels on a daily close, then it could actually run a reasonable amount. S&P 500, similar sort of deal. So it needs to hold this trend line. I think we could still have a few sideways days on this, but at the moment, that's a pretty good candle. Everyone seemed to turn bullish on it on Friday. So, that there is pretty good divergence. Probably not a super technical divergence on stochastic momentum, but fair difference in momentum between those two lows. So I like to look at that. I like the higher low on the advanced decline line as well. That's a really good sign. So at the moment, it looks like a decent turnaround area for S&P 500, and of course, it would have ripped a lot of shorts in that move. Everyone looking for the head and shoulders play. Equal weight, same sort of deal. High low on stochastic momentum is a good sign. I'm definitely thinking more bullish on this at the moment. I kind of, after a big up day across the market, I do kind of expect maybe a little pullback at some stage, but doesn't have to by any means. Certainly greater than 1% across the board it's an accumulation day, put it that way. Yeah, not hating IWM here either. It looks pretty good. Look at XLY, XLP. Good day on that as well. Equal weight, even better. So this is looking strong. And it's these ones that have kind of led me to suspect that the Head and Shoulders wasn't going to play out. It could still play out, but it just not straight away, not on the first try. ITB finding a bit of a base here. It did finally close that gap. So ITB's got basically permission to keep going to the upside at the moment. Stochastic momentum is good. I'd like to see a switch around in BBWP, but in general, sorry, that was KRE, not ITB. ITB is similar though. So it's finding a bit of a basing pattern here. Momentum continuously getting higher. This is a good sign for at least a bounce in the markets. Same with XHB. So semiconductors got a good bid here. Cleared that the previous closes, the previous highs, put in a higher low. So that is a good sign as well. Coming off pretty low BBWP too. So semiconductors could actually have a decent run to the upside here. DJI Gold, good bounce on that as well. Same with DJT Gold, certainly not out of the woods yet. Again, this is suggesting overall the economy isn't great, but basically we want to see this run up, and if this turns around again, that's probably going to be another high on the stock market. VIX, so VIX pulled back a bit. Pretty good engulfing on the VIX there. Suggest we will come back down a bit more. Skew actually pulled back quite a bit. So kind of a contrary read to what we're suggesting. So skew saying that maybe a bit of a pullback for the start of the week. New low on that as well. So careful of going too bullish here. I think it's just there's going to be a lot of chop this year. It's probably going to be longer term plays are the key this year. Either that or just scalping intraday trading. Yeah, Chinese market, little bit of a bid here. It's actually it's not looking as good as the US market by any means, and the DAX hasn't reclaimed that trend line, so I would actually call that basically a retest of that trend line, because it's not a perfect trend line by any means. So the DAX will probably drop back into this trend line here, I would think. Just have a quick look. Japanese market actually might go a little higher. Momentum's not in its favor, but it may follow suit with the US. UK market might have a little bit more in it. TLT definitely needs to confirm a support here. It's looking similar to a lot of the other indicators, so it's making higher highs on the momentum as we're sort of coming off flat at the moment, and it could still drop, but just have to wait and see on that. High yield jump. I mean, it's making its way higher. Momentum's in its favor. Probably at least comes up and closes some of this gap here. again, like it could pull back a little bit if there's a bit more profit taking and stuff, or a bit more selling in the market over the next couple of days. But I would generally expect this to at least come up into the 79.5 level. Bonds. That's, I think, the Australian bond. Yeah. Looks like they're confirming a bit of support for this as well. So this one's a little bit more concerning. It's suggesting a bit more to the downside, actually. Yeah, that's actually looking a little bearish. So again, it's not a great read to the upside yet. But bonds are a tricky one at the moment because they are being slammed across the market. Yields are generally still going higher and staying higher. And yields going higher is not great for stocks in general. Just have a look at this as well. So this is the Chinese bond yields. So it's actually suggesting there's a lot of interest for China government bonds because the yields are dropping so much. So that there is interesting. It's a bit of a flight to safety in China by the look of that. Just trying to see if this actually gives us a read on the S&P 500. And the funny thing is, every time we get a big spike in this, the S&P 500 drops reasonably soon after that. And look, I mean, same sort of thing happened here. If we're starting to make higher highs on this, as the S&P 500 actually rises, that could mean a bit of a pullback in the S&P 500. So that's something to keep in mind as well. 10-year seems to go a bit before it though. Seems to spike well before the actual pullback in the S&P 500. I haven't back tested this. This is just on the fly. This is the first time I've looked at this in relation to it. So I haven't really gone back through it too much, but it is quite interesting that this tends to be elevated before a drop in the markets. All right. Generally, this is more of a sign that's in confluence with the idea that we are going to get a pretty major correction this year. I wouldn't necessarily use it as timing though, especially when you got copper having a good bullish engulfing on a vector candle. Bullish divergence on stochastic momentum as well. This is looking relatively bullish, I would say, on copper. May still get a pullback, at least to recover this vector, potentially further, but it shows there's a bit of support for copper at these levels, so I'm not expecting it to drop through this trend line. If it does, I would be generally more bullish, more bearish on the market across the board. Bit of a pullback in gold, back into that value area low. We are sitting at a point of control at the moment, so gold is sort of a nothing at the moment. If it breaks below this value area low, and we're probably going to see it pull back into this box here. If it breaks above that value area high, then you'll probably see it actually pull up more into the at least 27k mark, or sorry, 2700 mark. Silver finding a little bit of support, not a great candle there, but momentum is ticking out of that bearish control zone as well. So US oil's been a good play. Strong candle close above that 200. We have seen it reverse from here before though, so I think today is going to be critical for oil, especially since there's a bit of volume around here as well. Might actually pull that back into here. Yeah. Oil, if we get a pullback into that value area high or even the point of control and then a bounce from that, that would actually be pretty strong for oil. Certainly in support of a bit of a rally in the markets. Dixie is kind of in no man's land. Like a lot of people are saying, Dixie's pulling back now. This is what makes me think too that we may have a couple more down days, because Dixie, I think, realistically, 110 is the target on Dixie. I don't think it's stopping here. Yes, it got to sort of this level in here, which was a reasonable sort of support and resistance level. But I just think it'll recover more of that vector candle. And that vector candle recovery has been a pretty good target level in the past. And it's definitely not a particularly bearish candle close there either. So I think at some stage this week it will sweep that 110 level. Certainly not out of the woods for a lot of these other ones yet. Yeah, the euro's definitely still postured to the downside. It found a bit of support off this level, and same with the Dixie. Really, it's to a reasonable level, but I wouldn't call it super strong. I do expect this to come back a bit closer to parity. Brazilian real still trying to find some support here, struggling. Now, M2 money supply is still increasing. Same with the M1. The interesting thing here is you get a little uptick in, well, it doesn't look like an uptick. Basically, it's at least sort of flattening off. Don't know why that hasn't. This is a weird thing. Anyway, supposedly it's sort of flattening off at the same time the stock market actually made a green day, so that's a good sign. Still want to see a bit of an uptick in this, realistically. Yeah. Haven't got a new read on any of them. Credit card defaults have started to increase in the US as well, so that's something to keep in mind. Generally a sign of a weakening economy. This was a good read though, so percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average, suggesting there's a fair bit of breadth in this bounce. So be looking for this to sort of continue over the next couple of weeks, and in general the stock market to keep rising. Not a bad bounce on Mag 7. Tesla was a big part of that. Didn't really hit that level of support here though. Could just be retesting this level and closing that gap, suggesting we may still get a little bit more downside on the markets. I would like to see Tesla bounce off here rather than just the bottom of this vector. We'll see what happens. So I think like Nvidia, that's a strong candle for Nvidia. That was a really good support level for it, as it turns out. Yeah, Nvidia looks like it wants to at least recover this wick here. So a couple more days of upside for Nvidia is likely. If we break to a new high, that would be generally bullish on the market. Like the big guys are going to really be the one to watch. If they start to break down at key levels, then I think the market's going to look a lot sicker. Google, not a bad day, not the best, not the worst. ARK, it's a good move on ARK, suggesting there's a bit of interest in risk. Apple, I mean, that's been a pretty big drop. Not a bad level for Apple, but I think it should still pull back a little bit further. Amazon, yeah, not bad for Amazon there. Meta not looking as great, but momentum is in its favor there. But yeah, AMD, so good bounce on most of the semis here. You want to see that follow through, I think. Airbnb, decent bounce. Geez, it's been sitting around this 200 EMA for a while. Just looks like it wants to go. SMCI, decent bounce, but certainly not out of the woods yet. And ASML, again, semi's got a bit of dark pool activity in here as well, from what I understand. So that is a strong sign. And I do expect him to come into this vector candle still. So it's looking like semis are probably the play at the moment, but that will generally lift the rest of the market. It's just we may get 1 or 2 days down at the start of this week. If we don't, then I would expect a little bit of a pullback towards the end of the week. Yeah, interesting on the Aussie market there. Might actually play out this head and shoulders. Good vector candle recovery point in here, so it might sweep 83.55-ish before pulling back. Total crypto market cap, a little bit flat, but actually it hasn't pulled back as much as Bitcoin, so that's a good sign. Want this to play out more, want this to keep going down. That's the stable coins versus Bitcoin. Ethereum longs are dropping. So are the shorts. Bitcoin longs, they've flattened off a little bit. No real huge selling of the longs yet, but these guys can have positions for quite a while. The shorts are still relatively high as well, so people are building short positions still for Bitcoin. I think if we get another leg up, this will probably spike again, obviously, but I think that will play out a bigger pullback. So ETH BTC, ETH is actually looking like it's going to be a better play than Bitcoin. Not by a lot at the moment, but potentially a little bit better. ETH dominance is still in the toilet, really. Looking better, but in the toilet. And Bitcoin dominance is kind of dropping. So it seems like there's a bit more of an interest in the alts at the moment than there is actually Bitcoin. Although it did have a bit of an uptick today. The alts have obviously dropped a bit more than Bitcoin has. So Ethereum, it's still looking good. Like potentially a pullback into this trend line, which is the old trend line. That's still going to act as support. But in general, you would expect it to come up at least into that value area high. And to be honest with you, it'll probably come into this high volume area here at about 38.90, if not a little bit higher. But if we're hitting those levels and BBWP is increasing, I would expect it to break this high here as well, which could be generally bullish for the overall market, particularly alts. CME closed at 99, so if it opens where Bitcoin is at the moment, about 98 and a half, that will leave a gap to fill to the upside, and it probably will fill it straight away. Looking at this chart, it's a fairly bullish chart overall. Okay, so Bitcoin has actually made a decent bounce in this. Oh, it's interesting. Closing above there on a vector. If we see a red vector to the downside, that'll probably bring us back down into the bottom of this channel, but that is generally, that will actually lead to continuation. It's just how quick that happens and how quick we actually pull back from when it peaks, because it's getting quite close to a 3 standard deviation level. Actually, 3.6 standard deviations is probably close to a 3 standard deviation already. So that, yeah, I don't think that'll lead to big breakout yet, but it's a good sign. It's a sign that we are probably going to break to the bull side of this, as far as I'm concerned. Big volume too, massive volume. The old Sunday night US tends to bring some volume every now and then. Yeah, it all depends what we leave behind here, but generally that's a pretty good sign. Quick look at Sol. Sol hasn't come with it either, which is sort of probably more of a bearish sign for me. Sol on daily. Sol may pull back a little bit further before it goes, but I would expect this to run if Bitcoin does. Like, it doesn't have to pull back. It just looks weaker than Bitcoin at the moment. Just going to do a value, anchored volume. It's actually rejected that point of control there. Yeah, pull back into the 204 level, maybe a little bit lower actually. We're in 201, 202, and then bounce from there wouldn't be a bad thing for Sol. But yeah, it certainly wouldn't be the first time it would have turned around from here as well. Sol versus Bitcoin's pulling back a little, but XRP, I mean, a lot of the alts are actually already in their bullish control zones. So they might be having a little bit of a rest, but if Bitcoin runs, these should run too. I watched the Coin Bureau video on hype the other day. It's got me a little bit concerned, actually. Um, just the unknowns around that business setup and the likeness to FTX setup is a little concerning. Fetch. Yeah, there's a fair bit of strength in a lot of these alts. Big move from Sui to break that high. Yeah. At this stage, you'd expect any sort of pullback on these to be met with buyers. And they could pull back as Bitcoin is running too. In general, some pretty bullish structures though. But there's a bit of a W pattern. If we actually get an update on algo, it could at least go back up into this vector wick here. So algo is not a bad play at the moment. Ton's not looking the best, but higher low here is a good sign. Momentum switch back to the upside, and BBWP is pretty well reset, so Ton could actually go on a decent run as well. Yeah. Well, Powell breaking to new highs as well. That's in general, I think the market is pretty bullish. Sui AI is not looking great. In fact, most of the AI coins that pumped the other day have given back probably half their gains, which isn't the worst thing either. Bit of a pullback and then another leg up. Wouldn't go astray. Carve's been holding a level ages. Interesting. Go pulling back as well. Actually, AI looks like it might pull back more than the rest of the market for the most part. Yeah. Interesting. Gaming looks like it's getting a bit of support. Not bad charts on most of gaming here. Maybe a little bit more of a pullback, just similar to AI, and then a run. But for the most part, pretty reasonable levels here and pretty reasonable looking charts. UFO. I got to pick up some UFO actually. Haven't done that yet. Yeah, not bad looking charts on a lot of these. Cypher's probably worst out of all of them, to be honest, just given the run that it's been on. It's hard to buy once you're at the top here. It's probably a hold point. Big time. It's like a good accumulation zone. Bull. Yeah. A lot of them putting in at least higher lows recently. Pretty good buy zones on a lot of these. Pengu's had a good couple of days as well. Not the best looking candle here, but I do expect Pengu to at least come up into this wick here at some stage. Don't know whether it'll break to the upside of that wick, but it's the target. Yeah, most of the meme coins have had a pretty decent run as well. Apparently, Vitalik has actually sponsored Moodeng. So actually, that confirms this as a high low. That would be a really good W pattern there. It could lead to significant upside. At the moment, though, volume on this meme has been dropping quite considerably. So it is a meme after all. They tend to just lose interest in general. Same with Pepe though as well. It's not the time of the memes at the moment. All right, that's about it for me today. Have a